Welcome to Speaking the Language of the Soul global event, in which we will gather for powerful conversations with scientists, indigenous elders, wisdom keepers, shamans, healers, to reveal and restore our relation to the divine and the truth of who we truly are. This event is designed to open up space for all of us to remember the oneness and sacredness of everything, the uniqueness of each and every one, and the unique contribution that each can offer to creating a new way of living on Earth by simply aligning with who we truly are. Here you are invited to tune into the wisdom and the healing energy created in these conversations and experience your own deep healing as well as healing the collective. I am your host and creator of this event, Veselka Nikolova, and today I'm excited to present to you a remarkable human being who also has played a great role in my life, SWAMI SIVAMURTI Saraswati. Welcome, Hari Om, SWAMI SIVAMURTI.
Hari Om, Hari Om.
Thank you very much for being here today. So let me introduce you now to our audience. SWAMI SIVAMURTI Saraswati was born and raised in Australia. In 1975, she traveled to India where she met her guru, Sri Swami Satyananda Saraswati, and at the Bihar School of Yoga in Mungir. And she was initiated into the Dashanami order of sannyasa after receiving training on various branches of yoga and the tradition of sannyasa. He gave her the mandate to bring the teachings of Satyananda Yoga to Greece, upon which he established 3 Satyananda Yoga meditation centers and the first residential ashram of its kind then in Europe, which was inaugurated by Sri Swami Satyananda in 1985. Over the next 4 decades, she guided the establishment of numerous independent centers all over Greece and the training of hundreds of yoga teachers in the Satyananda system of yoga. She also established Satyananda Mat in 1991, which is a charitable organization, an association of Greek yoga teachers trained in the Satyananda system of yoga to connect them to the Parampara and to the source of teachings, the Bihar School of Yoga, India, and a federation of Satyananda Yoga centers. She is a yoga acharya, which means master of yoga, a member of the governing body of the Satyananda Yoga Academy, Europe, and a member of the Yoga Vidya Council, India. She has traveled extensively throughout Greece and abroad, giving yoga seminars and authoring many books on Satyananda Yoga. Her latest book, called In His Footsteps, is a culmination of her life's work as a disciple and sannyasin, and is a tribute to her guru's life and teachings. So the topic of today's conversation with Swami Shivamurti, is yogic tools for total health. And let me start with a question about yoga and physical health first. What yogic tools can better enable us to improve our physical health?
Of course, there are many. In yoga, the practices which are done will not only, of course, improve our physical health, but bring mental harmony and spiritual upliftment as well. They are based on the model of body, mind, and spirit interaction. So if we look at Hatha Yoga, for example, which is one of the most popular branches of yoga today, we say that it is not just a collection of physical postures. The word Hatha relates to the solar and lunar flows of pranic energy, which are balanced and energized and maintain one's physical and mental health through asanas, physical postures of yoga, and pranayama, or the techniques that use different branches of breathing, together with a number of other yogic practices. These two energies are very important to understand because they control all the systems in our body. They control the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, the endocrine system, the circulatory system, the digestive system, the respiratory system, the reproductive system, and all the other systems that I haven't mentioned. They control the way we move, the way we think, the way we feel. They control everything, in fact. SWAMI Satyananda, when I was traveling with him, he explained, and I'll quote him here, he explained that when there's disharmony between the solar and the lunar energies of Ida and Pingala, as they're called in Sanskrit, there is disease, restlessness, and disturbance. And when there is harmony between them, there is peace and good health. So through the practices of Hatha Yoga, these energies are balanced and regulated, the chakras and the whole body are purified, and a state of union and harmony and peace is achieved. In fact, SWAMI Satyananda once pointed out that the kadakus, which is a symbol of health that shows two serpents intertwined around a staff, indicates the balance between these two energies, between both Ida and Pingala energy. So Satyananda Yoga practices begin with a series of asanas known as the Palmukdasan series, 1, 2, and 3, which have been devised by SWAMI Satyananda to remove energy blockages detrimental to one's health, allowing the energy or prana to flow freely throughout the body. Then other asanas are introduced, depending on the health requirements of the individual. However, it's important to point out, according to our tradition, these three series, these Palmukdasan series of 1, 2, and 3, which unblock the energies in the body and massage the internal organs and improve the digestive system and a host of other things, it's really enough. They're really enough to keep the whole body and mind healthy. We move into the more complicated asanas, so to speak, if one needs them, when there's a serious illness or when there's a real need for them. So the emphasis is placed on the Palmukdasan series, and in fact all asanas that we do, on 5 levels. First level is when you practice the asana, to be aware of the physical movements. The second level is being able to synchronize the physical movements with the breath. And thirdly, we use the power of visualization. Even if we're not doing the asana perfectly, we imagine, using the power of the mind, that we are doing the practice perfectly. And in time, the mind, as it controls the body, it influences the way we do the movements, and our movements improve. Of course, if not a functional problem, our movements actually improve. And in doing this, the first 3 stages I've mentioned, we energize the Annamaya Kosha, the first sheath, then the Pranamaya Kosha, the second sheath, through the breathing practices, and then the Manomaya Kosha, the mental sheath, through the visualization practices. So we are connecting through simple asanas the various sheaths that encase the soul. Of course, there are 2 more sheaths. There's the Vijnanamaya Kosha, or the intuitive sheath, and there's the Anandamaya Kosha, which is the blissful sheath. And later on, when we've mastered those 3 stages of working with the asanas, the physical level, the breathing level, and the visualization level, then we move into working with the chakras in relation to the asana, and also with mantra in relation to the asana. So through these practices, we energize all the sheaths that are encasing the soul. Another important series in the yogic toolbox involves the 7 movements of the spine, which keep the spine healthy and strong. Forward bending and backward bending, left and right sideways movement, left and right twisting, and then stretching. So with that way, we flex the spine, we move the spine, we energize the spine, we remove the blockages of the pranic energy in the spine, And we keep the spine very flexible, because it's said in yoga that the healthier your spine is, the healthier you are. If you can keep a healthy spine up into old age, so to speak, you can maintain your health. Then there's also the practice, I should mention, of Surya Namaskar, which is a practice handed down from pre-Vedic times. This also brings great benefits. It strengthens the spine, it balances the metabolism, and it improves the functioning of the many bodily systems, especially the endocrine system. It's a practice of 12 steps, of actually 24, which energize and harmonize the endocrine system. And I remember saying a quote of Albert Einstein, where he said, "Our destiny is controlled by the endocrine system." So it's very important to keep that endocrine system functioning, as it has such an effect on our body and mind. Other tool, there are so many, I'll just mention a few. Another one is the Shatkarmas of yoga. These are a series of cleansing techniques which balance the Ida and Pingala and Nadis, or energies, that I mentioned earlier, and they bring both mental and purification. It's, of course, important to do these practices with an expert teacher who's well-versed in them and well-trained and has done the practices themselves. In fact, one should always do yoga with an experienced teacher who actually practices what they teach. This is one of the fundamentals in Satyananda Yoga, not to teach what you yourself haven't practiced over a period of time, so that you are experienced enough to handle any difficulties that your students may have. Another practice perhaps I could mention is breath awareness. This is a very simple and essential tool that helps us understand the deep connection between the way we breathe and the state of our mind. As when we are breathing, when our breathing is fast and shallow, our mind becomes agitated, restless. But when our breathing is slow and relaxed and deep, the mind becomes quiet, the mind calms down, tensions are released. The emphasis on deep conscious breathing is very much part of a yoga, because it has so many benefits. And breathing has been found to manage hypertension, various degenerative diseases that we face today, normalize one's blood pressure, can add quality years to one's life. It also influences the cerebral cortex, which stimulates the most sophisticated area of the brain and brings out the more humane qualities of an individual. When we've established breathing and we can breathe slowly and deeply, then we move into pranayama, which are techniques, some people call them breathing techniques, but they're not actually. They're techniques which utilize breathing, but they're much deeper, have a much deeper effect than the breathing techniques themselves. They utilize different ways of breathing. There are so many different pranayamas but they basically fall into three categories, where they either energize the body, or they calm the body, or they balance the energy flows in the body. So there are many pranayama techniques that we use that fall under these three categories, and the student picks out those that are most beneficial for them, or depending on what illness they might be facing, the teacher would advise then what would be most suitable. Perhaps if we just want to practice one pranayama, Nadi Shodhana is the queen of pranayama. It purifies all the pranic flows, which are some 72,000 in the body, according to one branch of yoga, one system of yoga. That's a very important one, perhaps the most important pranayama. Then perhaps another one to mention is Brahmari pranayama, which activates the vagal nerve and puts the body in a parasympathetic state, which allows the physical body to relax, of course. Many ways. Also important to mention are the mudras and bandhas of yoga, which balance the pranas and awaken the chakras, leading to physical and mental health. In the Satyananda system, a Satyananda Yoga class contains a little bit of all these practices that I'm teaching, except the Shatkarmas, which are done outside the class, so that one gets the full holistic benefit of the various practices that are available. And we cannot close this without mentioning relaxation techniques. They're also a major tool that with regular practice guarantee good physical and mental health. They restore health to the body. They're so easy to do. You just have to lie back in a pose called Shavasana and practice a relaxation technique such as Satyananda Yoga Nidra, which is a very popular technique around the world today, where you're guided by the teacher to become aware of various parts of the body, and through different breathing techniques and through different feelings and sensations and through different visualizations. It's a beautiful technique. It's one of the most popular techniques, and it triggers off what was called a relaxation response, and really calms the mind. It's also a natural painkiller. So in closing, just let me mention, I've mentioned all those practices. I think I've covered the basic ones. What is important is yogic lifestyle. It's not enough just to practice yoga, just to go once or twice or 3 times a week to a yoga center. What one needs to do is bring yoga into their lifestyle. If one really wants to bring about a transformation and a change, then one needs to bring the practices of yoga into their lifestyle so that they start living a yogic lifestyle. Swami Niranjan, the spiritual successor of Swami Satyananda, he's put together a very nice yogic lifestyle sadhana capsule, which incorporates all the essential techniques. Now, he did this because he was aware that the modern life is so fast moving, and modern people so often say, oh, I don't have time to practice yoga, or I'm so busy I can't manage it. But he's produced these capsules which cover a variety of different illnesses and stages of life, for example, for pregnancy or for children or babies or teenagers or elderly. And they encourage you to start your day with a little bit of yoga, 5 or 10 minutes, then a little bit more. Then after breakfast or at work, you manage to do 5 minutes of special breathing. When you come back from work, you do a yoga nap to prepare you for your after the work activities. And then before you go to sleep, you do a review of the day, a short meditation and things like that. They're very popular, and they enable modern man or humankind to actually put yoga into their lifestyle, because it gives you the freedom to choose when you're going to do the yoga practices, and you just have to fall into the habit of doing it. And you find that yogic capsule, some yogic capsules are only 20 minutes, so you can fit easily, everyone can fit 20 minutes at different stages throughout the day into their life. I think that's enough for this question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This first step is so important, to start with the physical body, because we need this physical body to move to our daily activities. And we're usually in our masculine part of us, of decision-making in the mind, of achieving a goal or meeting deadlines. And it's kind of, this is the way our life is set somehow at the moment, and has been for quite a long time. And I personally have to mention that Hatha Yoga has played a tremendous change and role in my life when I decide to do it, even for 30 minutes in the morning, because it balances, it just remarkably changes the energy of the body. And the day goes in a different way if, for example, I decide to skip it some morning. And what you mentioned is so important, that the yogic lifestyle is not giving this attention to the practice in the morning. It's incorporating it as a lifestyle. And bringing our awareness away from this hectic lifestyle that we're leading and coming back to this peacefulness is very important to connect with the body and be present at the moment, be present at the very moment, which shifts the whole energy of the body. And so thank you for making this conclusion and clarification at the end, which is, I'm sure many people are familiar with Hatha Yoga and practicing, even many of our audience, but bringing it into our life is really, thank you for mentioning that. What about, could you mention some tools about how to, yoga helps us improve our psychological well-being?
Thank you. Yes, well, according to yoga, some people say, some yogis say, 80% of our illnesses are psychosomatic. For example, psoriasis, asthma, eczema, diabetes, stomach ulcers, high blood pressure, heart disease, cancer. The majority of illnesses are actually psychosomatic in origin. They stem from disturbances in the mind and then manifest in the physical body. I remember Sri Swami Satyananda saying many years ago, when he was talking about cancer, that cancer starts 5 years before it actually appears in the physical body, before it reaches the physical body. It has to go through the other sheaths or koshas that I mentioned. So it starts somewhere in the mind. So we're looking at the Manamaya kosha. So some experience or some disturbance has happened there, and it creates, little by little, a disease like cancer or any of the other psychosomatic diseases. Some of them come from the mind more quickly into the physical body. Others take longer. So it's the psychosomatic diseases come from this tension, this stress, which everyone has today, and anxiety that's in the mind. Anger, for example, it sends so many toxins into the bloodstream. Jealousy, guilt, shame, internal conflict, fear, another one. We all have them. We all experience them at some point. Of course, if we go into Raj Yoga or Gyan Yoga, we look at techniques, we look at practices to handle these different states of mind, find ways to overcome anger or jealousy or guilt and shame by working with the particular chakras or psychic centers that are associated with these attributes or these impressions in the mind. Over the last years, definitely we've seen yoga being integrated into mainstream medicine much more, as research is showing that certain types of yoga can bring about very good results, especially in relation to the mind, because yoga is all about managing the mind. If you can manage the mind, you can do almost anything. My guru said to me, Swami Satyananda, he said, if you can manage the mind, you can do anything. And if you can manage the unmanageable in mind, then you're a guru. Most of us live according to the dictates of our mind. We are controlled by the mind. Perhaps we're not really aware of that. But awareness is a very important aspect of yoga. So we learn, awareness means witnessing. We learn to take a step back and witness what's going on in the mind and not identify so much with it through techniques such as pratyahara, where we disassociate from the senses and we become more identified with that within us that knows we exist. And we start to observe our levels of insecurity or our fears or our desires, our needs, our ambitions more. We start to get a clearer picture of what's actually going on in our mind. And when we do that, when we can manage that, then we can start to influence the mind because we've got a clear picture of what needs correction. For example, take guilt or fear, perhaps is an even more difficult one to handle. If we can see through witnessing and through meditation where our fears are coming from or where our guilt has come from, we can then do something about it. And there are numerous techniques in Satyananda Yoga to enable us to isolate these different impressions of the mind and bring about a transformation or redirection of that energy, because it's all energy. Anger is energy, guilt is energy, fear is a form of energy, it's a vibration. If we can find out what that vibration is, if we can find out which chakra can influence it, then we can adjust it and dissipate that and transform, for example, anger into love. A very simple practice is the practice I mentioned before, which is Satyananda Yoga, in Satyananda Yoga Nidra, is the systematic method of inducing relaxation on a muscular, mental, and emotional level. In this practice, our perception is directed inwards, and we are completely cut off from all types of external stimuli from the senses, except from the sense of hearing, through which we need to hear the instructions. But the other four senses are closed off, like when you're asleep at night, actually, but you remain conscious, you remain awake. And when this happens, when we can cut off the input coming from the senses, we are in a much better position to observe what's actually going on in our mind and see what's happening there. The majority of people out there, I'm not talking to you people who are here, but out there who have never come into contact with yoga or with allied systems such as this, they're not aware that they are of what's going on in their mind. They're not able to observe it. But yoga emphasizes become a witness, become an observer, not only of the mind, of the body as well, and of the senses. But we're talking about the mind at the moment. Become aware of what's going on in the mind. And as you go deeper, for example, you can see where you've got a fear of heights, or you've got a fear of darkness, or you've got a fear of the water. It's generally associated with some deeply embedded experience in your subconscious mind that took place either when you were in your mother's womb or in the first few years of life. And it's solidified there. That experience is solidified there. And we just, as adults, experience the effect. But if we can go down into the mind, which we can in Yoga Nidra and in meditation, we go down through different experiences of our life. And as the mind is so relaxed, we start to, it dislodges, we call these samskaras or impressions. They're dislodged from the deeper levels of the mind. And they start to float to the surface. So the experience that caused the fear of the water, for example, because I'm remembering some person who told me about their experience, comes up to the surface, and they visualize the experience of what they experienced as a child of 2 or 3 years old. And they go through the actual experience again of how that fear came about. Another doctor I knew, he had asthma, and he tried everything. And eventually he came to yoga, and he did this practice seriously of Yoga Nidra, Satyananda Yoga Nidra. And he had a childhood experience of when his parents had gone out to the opera or somewhere, and they left him with a nanny. And the nanny was wanting to watch the television, and she was force feeding him. And he couldn't catch the food, and he couldn't breathe. And he was coughing and spluttering, and there was fear associated with it. And from that moment on, his asthma attacks started. And after practicing Yoga Nidra, that was 2 years old, now at the age of 35 or something, when he came to the ashram in India, and I was there at that time, he started to practice seriously Yoga Nidra, and he had the experience of his nanny feeding him, He had the experience of not being able to breathe properly and the fear associated with that and the sputtering and the coughing. And that image came out of the mind. He lived through it, or to a lesser degree, because he knew he was witnessing. He knew he wasn't a child. He knew he was an adult. He was a doctor. He was witnessing a childhood experience. Came up. Asthma disappeared after that. So this is how the psychosomatic illness, the tensions in the mind, the impressions in the mind, that we do not have the opportunity to mull through and work out. And of course, a child, we don't get this opportunity. As an adult, if we learn the techniques, when we're facing a tension, we are taught a technique of how to mull through it and not allow it to sink deeper into the mind, but handle it on a conscious level so it doesn't go any deeper. But as a child, we can't do that. And all of us have had many. It's not possible to go through childhood without having some form of traumatic experience. So these experiences in the mind, samskaras, these impressions in the mind, which are deep in the subconscious, are encouraged to come to the surface through techniques such as yoga nidra and meditation. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. You mentioned something very, how deep actually simple practices go into the body, so that we can reach buried memories from an early age, where we even don't have any memories, and they're really like subconsciously stored and can be released. And this so important, what you mentioned, is being a witness. You and my Bulgarian yoga teachers were teaching us to step a little bit aside and observe ourselves in the daily life with any emotion we have, because from the emotions, as you mentioned, sorry, all the disturbances of the body, in the body starting, and all the chemicals that are released due to stress and hormones. So by observing it, I personally experienced how actually some unpleasant experience during the day turns out to be a very innocent, and even kind of, I was wondering, why was I upset with that when I'm observing me in that situation and reliving it? And the observer was thinking, the observer in me was thinking why I was upset with that. It's so neutral. And then it was released, as you are mentioning. And it is a beautiful reminder how we can step out a little bit and observe, and be the witness, the observer and the witness of our lives. Probably we will have less chemicals produced, toxins in our body, and it may it will bring to our health benefits. So it is not only, as you mentioned, balancing parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. It is going deep into the subconscious, really, and releasing all these traumas, experience.
And even deeper, one can go into the unconscious, even beyond, and eventually transcend the mind and experience the self. Yoga can take you all the way.
Yes. Yes. Yes, we are talking. We moved up to reaching our true self and experiencing our true self. Do you think yoga, having a spiritual practice, sadhana, is important in our lives in order to have this wholeness and experience a total health?
Before, the word spiritual has many connotations. So before we look at that, I just want to mention what spirituality is according from the yogic perspective. Firstly, spirituality is different from religion. Religion is a social concept. It can change from society to society and from one period of time to another. However, spirituality is very much an individual concept. At the same time, it's a universal concept because spirituality takes birth and unfolds from within, and it unites us with the universe by providing a sense of total fulfillment and the experience of an effulgent personality. When one comes to the realization, when they step out of the mind, when they come to that realization of that state of consciousness beyond the mind, which in yoga is called samadhi, and there are various degrees of samadhi. And in different cultures and different religions, it has different names. So, in my opinion, in order to gain total health, it's absolutely necessary for spiritual life to become the base of our ordinary life, where we follow certain spiritual principles that ensure us success in both a mundane and spiritual life. Please, we mustn't connect spiritual life with religious life. They're two completely different things. In Satyananda Yoga, there are 4 levels for the aspirant to develop through. And it's called progressive yoga. Swami Satyananda defined it as progressive yoga. So the first level is yoga practice, where you go to a yoga class, you meet a yoga teacher, you go to a yoga class 2 or 3 or 4 times a week, whatever you like, and you practice the various techniques that are being taught there, and you benefit from them. Some people don't go beyond this level. They're happy there. They've found many benefits in yoga, and they don't want to go any further. But for those who do, there's another level of yoga, which is yogic sadhana. And this is where the practitioner receives a sadhana, which is a yogic practice of combined techniques. It's a collective name for combined techniques which have 3 important functions. One, they begin to remove the limitations from our personality. Of course, they bring health. That's everything to do with health. They bring physical, mental, emotional, psychic, and spiritual health. By removing the limitations from our personality, and 2, awakening our dormant potential, and 3, cultivating awareness, this very important awareness that both the doctor and I were talking about before. Cultivating awareness means witnessing, as we both mentioned. It means disidentifying with our ego and identifying with that which is within us. This takes training. You cannot do it overnight. In the very first lesson one has in yoga, in our tradition, is become aware of how you move your toes, then become aware of how you move your feet, your ankles, and you go through the various joints of the body. And this awareness that we learn how to develop step by step on a physical level, then on the mental level, then on an emotional level, then we become aware of our actions and reactions, of how positive or negative the mind is. We become aware of the different inputs through the 5 senses. We become aware of how the gunas, the qualities of nature, affect us. I mean, there are hundreds of levels to train us in awareness, and it takes a lot of time. But even when one starts with a simple awareness of the physical, and something clicks in you, you realize, if I can witness the body, I'm not the body. Or then you start witnessing the senses, and you realize that if you're witnessing the experiences that you're having through the senses, then you're not the senses. Then when you come to witnessing the mind, and you start to witness your thoughts, you start to witness your ego-orientated actions, you start to witness how you rationalize, how you intellectualize, you become aware also of how your memory functions, how you store and receive memory. When you start to witness these various components of the mind, the realization dawns, I'm not the mind. So if I'm not the body, I'm not the senses, and I'm not the mind, who am I? So yoga takes us through all those levels of awareness from first starting with your toes to expanding your awareness to the understanding of that state of consciousness beyond the mind, which is called consciousness in yoga. The ancient Greeks called it the self. Socrates and the other ancient masters of Greece, they said, know thyself. Know the self beyond the body, beyond the mind, beyond the senses. They weren't talking about know thyself as a physical self. No. Know that self that you really are, question who you are, and go beyond the body, mind, and senses so you can realize who in reality you are. And this, of course, is yoga. This is the end goal of yoga. Yoga can take us there. So cultivating the spiritual side of yoga develops our awareness. It disciplines and restructures our personality. We learn how to manage the mental and emotional distractions and disturbances of the mind. We learn how to observe our life and one's actions. And when we start to do that, we open up a completely new world of experience, and we start to realize that life is much, much more than what it's appeared to be on the surface for us beforehand. There's more to life than getting born, going to school, going to university, getting a job, getting married, having children, retiring, training the grandchildren, finally, Hariam Tat Sat, finish it. There's much more to life than that. That's a beautiful aspect of life, and it's important, but there is much more which we need to realize. There's a deeper purpose to living than that. There's a much, much deeper purpose that as the mind evolves, as we evolve, as our understanding deepens, we come to realize that, yeah, there's more to life and I want to know more about it. I'm not satisfied with just the status quo. I want to know more about what's going on in this precious gift of life. Sri Swamiji used to tell us the greatest lesson we have to learn is a lesson of life. And the third level of, so that's, I've mentioned coming into yogic sadhana. I drifted off a bit there, but so the first stage in Satyananda Yoga is yoga practice. The second is yogic sadhana. The third is the yogic lifestyle, which I briefly mentioned before, which is when you have a capsule, you combine all that you're learning and you start to live it on a 24/7 basis. You bring yoga into your life. Yoga is not just a practice that you do once or twice or three times a week, but it's there with you. It's in your mind. You can actually turn every moment of your life into a yogic experience, into a spiritual experience, by aiming, for example, you may be doing repetitive work each day in and day out, and you think, how can I spiritualize my life? How can I improve this? But you can through awareness and treating each experience as something new, of course, which it is. As Heraclitus said, you can never step into the same river twice. Everything is changing. Everything is moving. So if you have work to do, bring that spiritual component in by trying to do it better and better and better each time, aiming for excellence, for example. So each day you do it a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. Every day you move a step forward. This is spiritualizing, working from a spiritual base in yoga and living a yogic lifestyle. And the fourth concept is yogic culture. And here you don't need no efforts required anymore. You just radiate yoga. You're peaceful, you're calm, you're loving, you're understanding. People are drawn to you. They see and they realize in you something that's different. They can't put a name to it necessarily, but they're inspired by you. You're able to inspire. Like the great yogis, you don't have to say anything or do anything. Just being in their presence is an inspiration. And the radiance that comes from the aura that comes from them influences us. And we, just through being in their presence, have certain realizations and deeper understandings. It happens quite naturally. Sri Swami Satyananda, he used to say that awareness was the alpha and the omega of yoga. And as I mentioned before, it's this ability to stand back and observe physical, mental, and sensorial experiences. And this alters our perception on what life is all about. And this, of course, awareness is a special privilege of man. It enables man to know that he knows. I just don't know that this is a watch. I know that I know this is a watch, is awareness in yoga. And this differentiates man from the animal kingdom, because animals perform all the same actions as we do, but they don't know they're performing them. We do. So cultivating and expanding one's awareness brings us to a deeper understanding of ourselves, of other people, and the world around us. And as I mentioned, it eventually enables us to experience our true nature, self-realization. And in doing this, step by step, we spiritualize our daily activities. And that brings us great satisfaction, inner satisfaction. Brings about positivity and optimism and hope and creativity to the mind. Thank you.
Would you say that bringing more awareness into our lives and connecting more and more with this observer part of ourselves, our true self, is actually the purpose of our lives, becoming more and more of the spiritual part of ourselves that is witnessing the body, the sensations, the mind, and does not identify itself with that? Would you say that this is actually the purpose of our life, living a meaningful life?
I would say it was the purpose of our life, to live a meaningful. Awareness gives us the ability to live a meaningful, fulfilling, and satisfying life. It keeps the mind positive, because humankind has taken their evolution to the point where we can experience our own thoughts, emotions. We can experience our fears, our sorrow, our memories, our passions, our desires, our jealousies, anger, guilt. We can experience all this. We can experience what's going on in the mind. But we've not come to the point where we're able to transcend the mind and experience that state of consciousness, the self, beyond the body, mind, and senses, because we have not been able to calm the mind. Before we can meditate, before we can experience our true nature, we have to calm the mind. If we look at Patanjali's yoga, the fifth step in yoga is calming the mind, pratyahara. And the sixth step is dharana, or concentration. Then we move to the seventh step, which is dhyana, or meditation. Or meditation, actually, dhyana means awareness. And samadhi, which is total awareness. You've transcended the mind, you're aware of whatever is beyond the mind. So we have evolved our mind to the point where we experience the mind, but we haven't evolved our mind to the point where we can transcend it and experience the self. And in order to experience the self, it's very important to calm down the mind. But mind will not calm down. It's very difficult to calm the mind. When the mind is agitated, you're not able to see yourself. It's like the moon, the full moon on an agitated sea. You cannot see the full moon in all its beauty. You see, it's fragmented. It's the same with us. The self expressing itself through the different koshas I mentioned, through the mind, is fragmented. We get glimpses of it, perhaps in moments of deep meditation, or when you're looking at a sunrise, or out in nature. Perhaps there are moments there you feel that beauty and you come in contact with another aspect, another level. But that's when the mind is calm. Because when the mind is agitated, we cannot see ourselves. We're able to see our passions, we're able to see our thoughts, our emotions, our fears, our sorrows, but not the self. And in Vedanta, which is one of the main systems of Indian thought, it said the Vedantins came to one conclusion, a very definite conclusion, says Sri Swami Satyananda, and that is to witness the mind. Watch the mind. Don't interfere. Be impartial. Because I didn't mention, and it's a very important point, awareness is an impartial state. You remain impartial. Awareness brings with it intelligence and understanding. They go together hand in hand. So the more aware we are, the more intelligent, not intellectual. I don't mean, intellect is a component of the mind. Intelligence is perhaps you could say, a component of the consciousness, of that which is witnessing, that which is giving us a deeper understanding. So the mind is thinking of fear, the mind is thinking of envy, the mind is thinking of jealousy, the mind is thinking of happiness, the mind is thinking so many things. That's okay. But as Sri Swamiji used to tell us, don't be affected by it. Just be a spectator of this match. Just as you go to the movies and you see what's happening on the screen, but you don't fully identify with the hero and heroine, to a certain extent, maybe, but you know that you are not that person. You're a spectator. You don't interfere with the mind. Because if you interfere with the mind, you can't help it. But when you watch the mind, when you witness the mind, it sits down quietly. And when the mind becomes quiet, then you can see the self. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very beautifully said. And it's such a beautiful conversation. And I would have gone even further, but I'm aware of our timing. And I don't want to miss the opportunity to share about your free gift. So you are offering a really generous free gift to our audience here. And it is about one long weekend residential ashram yogic lifestyle experience in Satyanandasram, Hellas. Would you have anything else to add to it?
Well, I hope that, I thank you for mentioning it, and I hope that whomever is listening and is inspired will follow up on that free gift, because we'd love to have you in the ashram. You can come 3 or 4 or 5 days, whatever suits you, and immerse yourself in yogic practices and yogic sadhana, but most of all in yogic lifestyle, so that you can experience those first 3 stages of Satyananda Yoga. And I really hope to see you from whatever country you come. You're very, very welcome to Greece and to spend some time with us in the ashram. Residentially there, we've got a lot of space and very nice rooms. Of course, an ashram shouldn't be, it's not, you come out of your comfort zone when you come into an ashram. So don't expect a 5-star hotel. Expect 1,000 stars, because we've got all the stars up there. But you won't have the same comfort at home. But that's important. But that's important to challenge the mind too and see how we handle different situations, because in those situations, we learn better how to handle ourselves, other people, and get to know ourselves more. So welcome. Please come. Hari Om.
It is a very generous gift. Thank you. And I can say that the Greek ashram is a piece of paradise. There are peacocks residing there, which remind us about the beauty of creation. But also, you mentioned that you're challenged there, but this is the aim of being somewhere and meeting your inner world. But once you're there, there is this silent connection with the energy of peace that we are all longing for. And then also I can share that when we leave, we are changed. So I encourage everyone to click on the link that will be below, that is below this video, and claim this free gift if you're drawn to, because it's a really life-changing experience. Being, even for a week, even for a week, it's a life-changing experience being there. So thank you so much, Swami Shivamurti. It has been such a beautiful conversation. And thank you for sharing these deep levels that yoga can help us with, this deep yogic wisdom. Thank you. I'm honored that you gave us this time today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor to be part of this beautiful event that you're creating, which will benefit so many people. Thank you. I
hope so. And especially people like you coming here that share their wisdom that comes from experience. And this type of knowledge can't come from just reading books. It comes from immersing into what you just described. So thank you for sharing, and I hope that everyone will be drawn to experience that. And so I invite everyone to tune into this conversation by watching it again and again. And thank you again, Swami Shivamurti, and see you again. Bye.
See you again. Hari Om. Hari Om Tat Sat.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.